Hey guys, it's Chels. If you're new here, hi, nice to meet you. If you've been around, you may have heard me share a little bit of my story with this particular episode in previous years, or maybe you're just now hearing about it and you're like, what? Chelsea has bipolar disorder. Yeah, let me explain. So I've been on YouTube for over 10 years and I've shared a lot of my life, and there was a certain period of my life where something just totally out of the normal happened to me. I didn't really know how to share it at the time, but now that I'm an adult looking back, this was 5 years ago, I feel like I can share so much more context and something that could help you. I hope genuinely that this video just helps you, whether you know somebody with bipolar disorder, whether you've always misunderstood the disorder, or maybe you have just kind of always viewed it in a certain light, and maybe I can kind of bring a little bit more context to it, because there is this, I feel like, idea around mental illness that if it's not depression or anxiety, it's strange and it is something not to really be talked about. I feel like this particular topic is just not discussed. It's not normal. There's just stigma around it, and there are still some things that are like that, but I find that there's been times where I'll open up about something on the internet, and then eventually, a few years later, other people are also starting to do that, and it's great. And I'm so glad people are sharing their stories. But I just don't want people to feel alone if maybe this has been you, or maybe this runs in your family or something similar, and you feel like you have to tuck it away, hide it in a corner because nobody's gonna understand, So a little bit of context. If you are new, this channel is shared with my husband. We are young parents, married, we're believers in Jesus, and we love just sharing our life lessons with you. I think this video is probably going to be a start of something that I want to open up about, more so in the area of how are our souls doing as young adult people. Mostly women follow me and my husband, but I think this is such a big thing that I've tried to tuck away for a really long time, and I want to share. There's a lot of things I feel like I've tucked away for a while. I think as a result of trying to protect myself, because I don't think that everything needs to be shared, but when I've gotten perspective, I want to share it from a healthy place, and I feel like I'm in a healthy place. So here we go. All right, so if you have not seen the video that I created about 5-ish years ago, I open up about the bipolar manic episode that I had a year prior. And that was a really tough time in my life, I think, for everybody who surrounded me. It was hard for me to even say that time in my life was hard, because in mania, everything seems right in your mind, and it's just amazing, and all is well in the world. And in fact, it just feels like finally everything's fallen into place. If anybody else has experienced mania or bipolar disorder or anything of the like, you could probably say the same in some light. And so my parents, even to this day, they don't use this to shame me or to say that, I'm any different from the other kids that they have, my siblings, but they do still describe that time in my life as, for them, being the hardest moments in their life that they've had to go through, because I was just so out of my right mind. Right now, I'm talking to you in my right mind, operating out of logic and thinking clearly through things. But at this point, I'm trying to think of how old I was. I think I was 18, and I had just met my husband at the time, had previously dropped out of the college that I was going to go to, felt God call me out of a long distance relationship that I was in. Personal things are happening in my life. I was in the middle of writing my first book as an author, and I was about to start the faith chapter, and then all of this stuff started crashing down, some sort of switch flipped. And I also had thought, whenever I had done some traveling early on in 2017, that year, around the time when I met my husband, that I shouldn't taper off of my depression medication because formerly I was like very depressed of like things just not like working out, all of my friends going to college, and I felt like I was at the lowest I had ever been, not eating, not sleeping, and I thought it was smart to come off of my medication at the time. For most people who know, like who take medication for depression or anxiety or any of the thing of the like you know, the best way to come off of a medication is to taper off so that your body can kind of like wean from it in a way. So I was feeling great, obviously, because Mania makes you feel amazing. And I just decided to stop taking it, and that contributed to the mania even more, like meaning it got even more extreme from that moment. I'll try to kind of describe where my mind was with describing what mania looks like, and then the low parts of bipolar. And let me just take you there for a second. So a lot of what happened during this period of time, it was definitely several weeks. It may have been 2 months or so where I was saying and doing things that was just totally out of normal Chelsea. I thought, because my birthday was coming up in a few weeks or so, maybe a month or two, I don't know, the timeline is kind of blurry, that my family was going to get me like a blue Bugatti car because I was always fascinated with sports cars, and that I was like making all this money when I really wasn't. I thought that it was smart to go to the bookstore and spend over $1,000 on friends and family that I love, because I felt like everything that I was picking up on the shelves was like resonating with like what they were going through. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they would need that. They would need that. And like, I wasn't thinking, oh, I'm about to spend over $1,000 on people that I love. Like, yes, the gesture is cool, but I don't have that money to spend on them. And I did it anyway. I came home. It was a sign to my parents. They're like, okay, wow, this chick is definitely not operating normally. I was like going on trips where I would drive through the night from like Illinois to Georgia and then Tennessee to like stop and meet some friends that I had never met before. And I am an outgoing person. Like, I love meeting new people, but that's not normal to like sacrifice sleep and to like speed on the highway and just like move at 1,000,000 miles a minute. There was a dream that I truly believe God had planted in my heart even before this all happened. The mania made me want to pursue it even more, but with intensity that was just unhealthy. And I wasn't making like clear logical choices that would actually progress that dream. It actually kind of squashed it for years. And I'm looking back on it now and I'm like, man, that was definitely a dream that God had given me. And because I had gone through such an intense mental illness period, I haven't even touched it since then. And I think that's part of the healing process, is like, there are things that I think God was doing that were good, but it wasn't for right then. And I was trying to rush them because, again, I wasn't in my right mind. So I was hyper obsessing over things to work on, things to talk to with friends, staying up through the night thinking like I needed to be on the phone, talking to people, sharing all these like crazy cool ideas that I had, watching constant like sermons and like just videos. And I was talking to my therapist, my counselor, a few weeks ago, and I was just kind of describing what happened a few years ago and sharing that I had become like, I would describe myself as a godly person. Like, I love to pursue the Lord. I love being in a relationship with Jesus. But in this period, I became hyper focused, like on everything has a tie to God. Like signs on the highway I would see, signs in my room, books that I would read, videos I would watch, people I would talk to. Like, to me, I thought like everything was connected and like everything had a reason. And like, yes, in a way, some of that makes sense, but not like to the degree that I was taking it pretty insane. And so why do I say all this to you? Why am I describing the mania? Because I believe that the mania, while I was in it, there was no way I could have recognized that within myself. And so it is helpful for those who have never ever recognized bipolar mania or an episode of that case to kind of know what it is so that you can recognize it in a friend or a family member, or it's hard to recognize it in yourself, but it is possible. And that was my mania. My lows would be like, because I wasn't getting as much sleep, because I wasn't thinking in my right mind, I would take what people were saying, like if they were accusing me of like thinking illogically or thinking not normally, I would get defensive and I would start to cry and get angry, and I just like had outbursts of like, I need to escape from like all of this. And I remember my room, I had put up pictures like all on the walls, and it looked like I just like couldn't get my mind to stop because I was constantly like decorating my room and listening to loud music and just getting super emotional over things that really shouldn't make most people emotional. But that was my mania, that was my lows. And throw in the mix like of the beginning stages of walking into a new relationship with Nick. At the time, we were just kind of getting to know each other, and he had recognized that I was definitely like not operating normally, and he had told himself that he wasn't wanting to pursue a relationship with me until I was in my right mind, because why would you want to try to pursue somebody that, like, at least in a dating sense, he was still pursuing me as a friend and in hopes of like us being together. But he wanted to first and foremost be my friend, help me get healing, help me understand what's happening to me. So he helped my parents open up my mind to the fact of like going into the hospital. I thought I was going into the hospital for a totally different reason, and it made sense in my mind why I was going. I thought I was gonna go, this is really crazy, this is how like extreme I was thinking things. I thought I was going in there to help like little girls who had cancer, and like to do their makeup or something like that. I don't know how my mind had gone there. Maybe it was because when I was younger, I had a friend, Talia, that was really close to me, and she passed away with cancer. You guys may know that from like the older YouTube days of us doing like the beauty videos together. But that's why I thought I was going to the hospital. So I signed papers thinking that, and I know that might sound like manipulative of friends and family, but I needed it. Like, I'm so glad that I got in there and got some medication, got to talk to people who were experienced and trained and like helping manic people come down from what is actually happening in their heads, and that this is very like chemical and like not me. So anyway, I was in the hospital and went to outpatient, and I started getting healing and help. But even out of the hospital, I was still having those thoughts. Like, you can't necessarily like expect to go into like a psych ward and get fixed like right away. It takes time. So my dad would take me to outpatient, which would be like 2-3 times a week. Over time, like, I slowly came out of it. And when I was coming out of it, I realized all the things that I said and did to people, that was just like not me. And I had intense guilt, intense shame. And I was like, man, like, if only the people that I had just met like during that phase could have actually known the real me, like maybe they would still be my friends, you know, because a lot of people did stop talking to me and didn't want to be my friend because I had done and said such irrational things and things that just didn't make sense and even hurtful to people. So I've dealt with, even over time, 5 years later, this is where I'll kind of move the video that I think is the impactful part. I tucked it away for so long, I think, because I was protecting myself from like trying to bring up hurtful things, because naturally as humans, our brain's trying to protect us from hurt, and it's just something we do. But as I've brought it up, addressed it, and realized that is a part of my story, and there is a chance that it could happen again, but it hasn't happened since then. Like, I haven't had an episode since then. I know the signs now. I have a person that I live with, that's my husband, that can recognize things within me. Mental illness in different shapes and forms runs in my family, especially my mom's side. And they're all amazing people. My siblings are wonderful. My family is wonderful. My parents are amazing. But I feel like it runs in some families more than others in different ways. So the impact that that time in my life has had through taking medication like a year later to kind of even keel myself, I decided to start tapering off because after a year I had realized like, okay, if I wasn't going to have an episode within that year, then maybe I can try to like get healthy in all other areas of my life as well and have different ways of like creating routines and regular things in my life to just allow me to be healthy. And if I ever need to get back on medication, I can. After the year, it's been almost 6 years, like coming up on 6 years since that's happened. I still know that that is a possibility to happen again, but I'm not afraid or shameful of it because I think there are ways to like kind of avoid the effects of that happening since it's happened before. The one thing that I think that it has changed over time is my creative wheel is just now, I feel like, coming back to where it was like before that had happened, because I was always afraid to get very passionate about things or passionate about my work or passionate about life, because if I were to do that, would I like spin off into an episode? Like that's where my mind sometimes thinks. And so I've always kind of had an even way of thinking about things, like trying to just kind of keep myself at ease, keep myself at bay, because subconsciously I've thought like, what if that does happen again? I don't want to hurt people, you know, I don't want to like say or do things that are not wrong or that are like wrong and hurtful and not me. So just now, like 5-6 years later, I'm coming around to the fact like that I am a passionate person. There are things that I care about. There are people that I care about, and that's a good thing. And I shouldn't be afraid to like be all in to the things that God has put on my heart, and not like I don't need to live in fear of something like that happening again. In fact, it allows me to empathize with others. There's a whole community of people who have probably felt invalidated or not even recognized for just like doing their day-to-day life and not feeling like there's anybody else who understands them. And that is just a lie from the enemy, because there are so many people who have been through something similar, or their bipolar depression looks like more day-to-day. It looks like more involved in their life every single day. And while that is not necessarily my story as of now, I'm a person that always looks at everything of like, I'm constantly growing and learning, and as I share and as I learn, I hope that you can have grace that I'm going to change and my perspective is going to change and yours might too. And I think that's beautiful, and I think we all should have grace to do that. So anyway, I have kind of looked at things from afar now and saw that there were a lot of different life events that had happened that were high moments and low moments that kind of clashed. And my mania, my bipolar manic episode was very situational, and that may be the case for others. But yours, if this has happened to you, or this is something that you have, it can feel very different and maybe like you're alone in it. But I'm just gonna let you know, like there is a whole slew of people out there that are also pursuing the Lord that this stuff just happens to. And I think that even though this stuff is hard, and even though it is hard to process, especially in the moment, God is going to use it, and He is going to allow you to empathize with others, walk through life with them. I just hope that in the process of all that, that we can really be there for each other and lead each other to true purpose, despite what has happened to us, despite the circumstances, despite the hurt that we feel, the guilt, the shame. We shouldn't be feeling those things anymore, because we're set free in Jesus of all of that. And I just like to say, like, that happened to me. It wasn't me. Like, that was not me. So I find freedom in that. And I don't know if you or somebody you know might find freedom in that as well. But it's pretty cool. As you get older, you get perspective on the things that maybe have happened to you in your childhood or have happened to you as you've gotten older. And you realize that you can heal and you can move forward. And this might sound, to some people who live with bipolar depression or bipolar mania like every day, and their situation's a little bit different than me, it might seem like, oh girl, you just had like your little episode and you're fine. But the impacts of that and the memory loss that I've had since then, like, has been pretty extreme, to where if you ask my loved ones, like, the things that I did and said, they could probably recall like a million other things that I can't even remember in my brain to you, because my brain was trying to shut off all of those things, because I was just going almost on empty, and it wasn't me. So why do I make this video? I think I've shared this before. I don't want you to feel alone, but I also think that this is something that needs to be shared about more. And if you guys have any other suggestions in this area that you want me to take this series, I would love to read those and kind of pray on like where God wants us to go with this series. I believe I've had a lot of freedom lately in viewing media and creating content in a totally different light. It used to be very like draining for me to see that, you know, views would fluctuate, or people weren't interested in something that is very like mature and very like reflective and I think important to talk about. A lot of people seem to just kind of want to watch like drama videos and things about pregnancy and like very lighthearted stuff, which I understand, but I also believe that there's a place for this content online that matters and that is like hits you in your heart, because you realize, okay, wow, there's actually like a lot more deep stuff going on and things that need to be addressed about more, because I still believe the internet can be a very surface level place, and I'm trying to bring more depth and richness to it, because that's more like real life. Like the conversations and the things we live every day are definitely more serious and not just all reels on Instagram and you know, how to make your life better and all this stuff. So I hope you can understand where I've gone with this, and I appreciate you guys so much, and thank you for sitting down and listening to me kind of talk about this. I would love to talk about it more, but I almost have to view this part of life and what had happened in a way of like spurts. Like, I can't just sit down and talk about it like for forever, because there's just so much to unpack with it. But I seriously thank you for listening to this reflective video 5 years later. It's crazy that it's been that long, but I just pray that God gives you guys grace to walk through whatever you guys are going through, and that He feels close to you and with you in that moment, in the struggle, whatever it is. And even in the beautiful moments, like you may be going through an incredible time in your life and you're just like so thankful that God is giving you unique perspective. And I'm truly happy for you if that's the case. And I feel like I'm in one of those seasons too, in a way. So grateful for you guys. Let me know what else you want to see here. And I'm just glad we got to have this talk today. Okay. See y'all. Deuces.